Hey, good morning. And welcome to our Sunday worship service. My name is Ken Fonce, and I'll be your celebrant this morning. And I am a longtime member of the church and a history professor at WSU. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad you are here. If you come in person, we'd like to give you a welcome package with an information card in it. If you fill that out and drop it in the offering basket, we will be in touch to support you in finding your way into our community. If you are joining us online, there's a link on our website to an electronic version of the same card. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags, so they're out there, and they can get you a welcome packet, answer any questions, or point you towards additional information. Whether you are new or not, please consider staying for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in our Zoom room. And now let's say our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we'll take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you're at home, please turn on your camera. Now, people at home, wave. Come on, turn on your cameras. All right, thank you. Now, people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. All right, thank you. And so, do we have any announcements from any of the committees or anything? Does not look like it. All right. So, we preface our service by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimi-Pu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Sitz-Umish, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all its peoples. So, we are hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let us light our chalices together. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. So today, on the fourth and final Sunday of highlighting the work of Black feminist scholars and thinkers, we're going to be diving into the work of Tricia Hersey, founder of the NAP Ministry. Some of you may remember the sermon on Hersey's work that Reverend Elizabeth gave last April. Hersey, aka the NAP Bishop, explores broad possibilities for reimagining and rebuilding our world and futures through the teachings and practices of somatics, womanism, womanist theology, Black liberation theology, Afrofuturism, and the wisdom of her ancestors. The concepts that inform Hersey's work may be unfamiliar to some of you. Somatics is a term that refers to the body as experienced from within. It's a field that studies the internal physical perception and experience of the body as opposed to the mind. Black liberation theology posits that the purpose of religion is to bring about the collective liberation of Black people, and womanist theology specifically centers the experience of Black women in that collective struggle. Afrofuturism is a cultural movement that blends science fiction, history, and fantasy to celebrate and reimagine the African diaspora. All of these theories and fields of study are woven throughout Hersey's work. In her book, Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto, Hersey synthesizes these teachings to shed light on our society's distant and often complicated relationship with rest. She invites us to imagine a world where we prioritize, where we exalt, in her words, deep restorative rest to resist and challenge grind culture, what bell hooks called the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. Hersey writes, grind culture thrives on us remaining in our heads, unable to allow the technology of our divine bodies to soar and develop. There is massive knowledge and wisdom lying dormant in our exhausted and weary bodies and hearts. I believe the dreaming part of our unraveling will be the most challenging because it goes against all we've been socialized to maintain, the pace and disconnection of grind culture. White supremacy thinking has taught us that there is only a binary, and the rigidity of this type of thinking keeps us available to the toxic systems, but unable to inhabit the divinity of our true selves. This is a time to simply stop and feel, a time to not force or attempt to make sense of what can and will happen when we allow our bodies to heal from the massive load that we have been carrying consciously and unconsciously. Can you remember a moment in your life when you have been told that the machine pace of your days is not normal? Sit with this for a moment. Breathe this in for a moment now. There has been no space for any of us to dream of anything outside of what we have been born into. To hear the simple and bold proclamation, you are doing too much. You can rest. You can just be. You can be, is revolutionary. To believe it and continue to dream up ways to feel and find rest, care, and healing is liberation. When we recognize this, we can, little by little, begin to honor our bodies and trust our ability to learn new ways of being. We don't have to be burned out, sleep deprived, painfully exhausted, or disconnected from ourselves and each other. Even when we don't have all the answers for the best way to deprogram from our brainwashing regarding rest, we can still go forth. We can always be open to dreaming into a process of rest. For many, rest is not a familiar proposition. It can be unsettling to experience the unknown ways rest can save you. We must continue to learn, trust, and experiment. If we lose hope, we must take to our beds and dream ways to find motivation again. So more on this later in the service, but now let us rise in body and spirit to sing our opening hymn together, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around.
Marching up to
Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is Sojourners Alliance, whose mission is to confront the barriers that lead to hunger, homelessness, and poverty through direct intervention with those in need by providing a safe and comfortable living environment while receiving intensive case management. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we now take some time to practice generosity together.
So now is the time in our service where we lift up joys and sorrows from the lives of members and friends. However, before we collectively share our joys and sorrows, I want to take a moment to light a candle of broader concern. Today, I light this candle for my colleagues in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles at the University of Idaho, Boise State University, and Idaho State University, who have dedicated their professional and personal lives to supporting underserved students, and whose livelihoods and careers are once again being threatened in the state legislature by Senate Bill 1357. I light it for the family and community of non-binary teen Nex Benedict, whose beautiful and brilliant light was extinguished by homophobia and transphobia. For the family of Alexei Navalny, whose courageous resistance to the dictatorship in Russia finally cost him his life. For the people of the Ukraine, who continue to suffer untold oppression, and for those whose lives and communities have been shattered by the violence in Gaza. In the face of tragedy and disaster, we affirm the sacredness of life. In the face of violence, we recommit to the work of creating peace. So breathe with me. Breathe in the anger, the pain, and the sorrow. Breathe out love. Breathe out peace. And now I'll invite Rodney Fry, a member of our pastoral care team, forward to lead the lightings of candles of joy and sorrow.
Good morning. I'm Rodney, member of the pastoral ministry team. Now is the time in our service when we lift up our joys and sorrows. The sharing of joys and sorrows is a sacred ritual in our community. a time to briefly acknowledge truly significant life events, either by submitting them in advance, typing them in the chat, or coming forward and sharing them in person. So go ahead and get comfortable. Take a few deep breaths and check in with your heart. Sorrow comes to every life. Each of us suffers sorrows and setbacks. Each of us struggles. Each of us sometimes knows defeat. Together we create a circle of compassion, wide enough to hold all the sorrow in our heart, all the pain in our lives. If you have a sorrow to share, I invite you to come forward now and form a line here. Please keep it to a sentence or two. Joy too comes to every life. Hearts were made to love, and the world and we in it are unbearably beautiful. Together we create a circle of celebration deep enough to hold all the joy in our lives. If you have a joy to share, I invite you to come forward now and form a line. Please keep it to a sentence or two.
Hi, my name is Barb de St. Croix. I'm the mother of Lacey Sutter, who occasionally attends here, and Lacey and Mark are currently in Las Vegas. So I came over for the weekend to take care of three very noisy, anxious girls between the ages of 8 and 14, almost 15. And I'm just 5 years into retirement and not used to this. But it's a blessing. I'm so glad I have them. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Borning. I'm Carly Borning's son, and here to celebrate her 105th birthday, which was yesterday. And that's a gift. I'm very grateful to be here and for also growing up in the church. She was one of the original charter members and the last of them. And Elizabeth says I should tell you there's lots and lots of cake downstairs afterwards.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Coralie. Happy birthday to you.
Every life, every heart, every one of us, at any moment, is filled with joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams and concerns. I'll light this final candle for all those things in our heart too tender to share at this time. Life, however fragile, is a gift, and we in this community of memory, caring, and hope celebrate this gift today and all days. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you, Thank you, Rodney. My mic on? Yep, there we go. So I'd like to invite you now into a time of meditation in words, silence, and music. Our meditation in words today is entitled Letting Go, and it comes from the book Wherever You Go, There You Are, Mindfulness Meditation in Everyday Life by John Kabat-Zinn. The phrase letting go has to be high in the running for New Age cliche of the century. It is overused, abused daily, yet it is such a powerful inward maneuver that it merits looking into, cliche or no. There is something vitally important to be learned about the practice of letting go. Letting go means just what it says. It's an invitation to cease clinging to anything, whether it be an idea, a thing, an event, a particular time or view or desire. It's a conscious decision to release with full acceptance into the stream of present moments as they are unfolding. To let go means to give up coercing, resisting, or struggling in exchange for something more powerful and wholesome, which comes out of allowing things to be as they are without getting caught up in your attraction to or rejection of them, in the intrinsic stickiness of wanting, of liking and disliking. It's akin to letting your palm open to unhand something you have been holding on to. But it's not only the stickiness of our desires concerning outer events which catches us, nor is it only a holding on with our hands. We hold on with our minds. We catch ourselves, get stuck ourselves by holding, often desperately, to narrow views, to self-serving hopes and wishes. Letting go really refers to choosing to become transparent to the strong pull of our own likes and desires, of the unawareness that draws us to cling to them. To be transparent requires that we allow our fears and insecurities to play themselves out in the field of full awareness. Letting go is only possible if we can bring awareness and acceptance to the nitty-gritty of just how stuck we can get, if we allow ourselves to recognize the lenses we slip so unconsciously between observer and observed that then filter and color, bend and shape our view. We can open in those sticky moments, especially if we are able to capture them in awareness and recognize it when we get caught up either in pursuing and clinging or condemning and rejecting in seeking our own gain. Stillness, insight, and wisdom arise only when we can settle into being complete in this moment without having to seek or hold on to or reject anything. This is a testable proposition. Try it out, just for fun. See for yourself whether letting go when a part of you really wants to hold on doesn't bring a deeper satisfaction than clinging. Let us sit together in silence and practice letting go. That song is so powerful. I always get a lump in my throat when I hear it. Good morning, everybody. I realized that I didn't introduce myself earlier, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Salisbury. I'm a longtime member of this church, and I serve as the director of the Women's Center at the University of Idaho. I'm honored to be here today to talk about the work of Tricia Hersey, aka the Knapp Bishop. Hersey now lives in Georgia, but she grew up on the south side of Chicago. She was the daughter of an abolitionist pastor with a strong lineage of Mississippi and Louisiana roots. Hersey's upbringing and heritage have strongly influenced almost 2 decades of work as a teaching artist, chaplain, poet, theater maker, performance artist, and community organizer, as has her identity as a Black woman in America. These multifaceted and intertwined experiences have inspired her to create and share physical, mental, and spiritual spaces for collective resistance through, in her words, radical thought and unbridled imagination. In 2016, Hersey founded the Knapp Ministry, through which she curates and guides immersive experiences for understanding the liberatory power of rest. Her book, Rest is Resistance, a manifesto, was published in 2022. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge and lift up that the primary audience for Hersey's work is other Black women. Women who experience the double jeopardy of marginalization through both their gender and their race, and who are targeted by a vicious blend of racism and misogyny called misogynoir. My commitment to rest as a form of resistance, Hersey writes, came from my everyday experiences of being part of the machine-level pace of our culture and surviving the terror of poverty, exhaustion, white supremacy, and capitalism. Rest, she asserts, saved my life. Rest has been rest for my soul. Her journey to rest, Hersey explains, began with a legacy of exhaustion. Her great-grandmother, Rhodey, would forego sleep and sit up a pistol in her apron pocket to protect her family from the threat of violence by the Ku Klux Klan. Her maternal grandmother, Ora, a mother of 8, dealt daily with the oppression of poverty and the terror of Jim Crow racism. As a child, Hersey remembers Ora sitting on her plastic-covered yellow couch to rest her eyes for 30 minutes to an hour each day to find respite from the relentless Hersey recalls. She rested and resisted the beast of grind culture. While grappling with the pressures of graduate school, financial struggles, family illness, and the ever-present threat and fear of racialized violence, Hersey says she began to experiment with intentional moments of deep rest to cope with the stress and strain of life. The legacy of exhaustion stops with me, she declared. Hersey's manifesto is an invitation into collective survival and present and future thriving. I came across her book ago during one of the most work-intense years of my life. I was working 60 hours a week or more, dealing with constant staff shortages, writing my doctoral supporting colleagues and friends trying to survive in a hostile institutional and political climate, trying to maintain some semblance of family and social life. I had days, many, many consecutive days, where I would work straight through my lunch break, disregard calls of nature, straight up ignoring the need for nourishing food and elimination. I read and studied and wrote all weekend long. I wasn't sleeping well, or exercising regularly, or drinking enough water, or eating properly, or nurturing close friendships. was clinging to my physical and mental health and well-being by the slimmest of threads. For someone who's typically healthy and strong, I started getting sick a lot, and I often took weeks to fully recover. I was introduced to Hersey's work through the White Accountability Group I co-lead. We're a group of women's center professionals around the country who gather on Zoom every other week to work on our anti-racist learning and growth and community together. Hersey's moving insights touched me to the core, putting words to thoughts and feelings that I had been experiencing for a long time and yet had never quite managed to articulate. Academia is the headquarters for grind culture, Hersey wrote, and the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm sacrificing my physical health, my mental and emotional stability, and relationships and family life for an institution that will never love me back. Now, I'm not talking about the people who work at that institution. I have deep and mutually respectful, even loving relationships with many of my professional colleagues, and some of them are my dearest friends. We work hard on protecting and supporting and uplifting each other, as well as our students. But the institution of education in the U.S. is mired in a white supremacy culture that encourages, no, demands, a level of productivity that is often unrealistic and sometimes feels inhumane. So many of us get sucked into the hamster wheel of grind culture, and once you're on the merry-go-round, it feels almost impossible to get off. I know those of you who work and have worked at universities know what I'm talking about. And the mass exodus of professional colleagues from higher education in the last 3 years is testament to this state of affairs. Our worth and value is not determined by our productivity. We need to reclaim our minds and bodies from the systems and structures that treat us like machines rather than human beings. In a world that encourages us to work until we drop, resting becomes a radical act of resistance. Hersey's NAP ministry proposes a framework of liberation from the trauma of grind culture, rooted in 4 principal tenets. Rest is resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. Our bodies are sites of liberation. Naps provide a portal to imagine, invent, and heal. Our dream space has been stolen, and we want it back. We will reclaim it via rest. Grind culture is a tool of capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on the principle of private ownership and the pursuit of profit. This system creates conditions for inequality, exploitation, and dehumanization because the profit comes in part from the surplus value created by the labor of workers. Workers produce more value than they receive in wages, and this surplus is then reinvested into capital accumulation and corporate profit. The fear created by the need to eat and survive keeps many of us in a never-ending cycle of constant hustle and suppressed exhaustion. Years ago, anti-racism educator Tema Okun developed a list of 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture, all of them interconnected and mutually reinforcing, that show up in our organizations, communities, and homes. Our institutions not only value these characteristics, they to some extent require them and constantly reproduce them in order to benefit from them. Among the characteristics that Okun lists are individualism, quantity over quality, progress is bigger or more, and a sense of urgency. These attitudes and behaviors reinforce and reify whiteness and white ways of doing and feed directly into the endless treadmill of grind culture. Refusing the treadmill, the hamster wheel, the hustle, and the exhaustion is to rest. Rest, Hersey believes, is an antidote to grind culture. The system is constructed in such a way as to make you think that your labor is indispensable, that everything will collapse if you take the time to rest. But only in resting or deprogramming from grind culture, as Hersey puts it, can we truly discover the abundance of alternate possibilities. I've heard many encouraging stories of former colleagues who've uncoupled from the intensity of academia to find rest and restoration in other fields of work and practice. It can be done, but our rest must be intentional, and it must be done in community. Only together can we imagine and construct gentler ways of navigating life in a material world. The second tenet of the NAP culture, of the NAP ministry, is our bodies are sites of liberation. Grind culture encourages us, as I shared earlier, to ignore our body's biological needs to eat, to drink, to use the bathroom, to slow down, to pause. We've been socialized to disconnect from our body's need to rest, and we're praised when we work ourselves to exhaustion. Not merely content with pushing our own bodies to the brink, we also begin to lose empathy for others. We punish our children for being lazy when they refuse to engage in grind culture with the same intensity that we do. We harshly judge others for taking breaks, for exercising refusal. Overworking, overcommitting, being constantly busy becomes a badge of honor. And by playing into the trope of productivity as a marker of success, we buy more and more deeply into the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. Intentionally disrupting the system means slowing down. It means finding space to honor our body's needs, including our body's need for rest. Ignoring those needs often means pushing our bodies to failure, as I did many times last year. My husband, Tom, is a shameless devotee of the 15-minute power nap. At least once a day, he makes time, like Hersey's grandmother, Ora, to stretch out on the sofa and rest his eyes for 15 minutes to recharge from the stress and toil of the day. In 35 years of working life, Tom has taken exactly 2 sick days. I think he might be onto something. Hersey's third tenet is naps provide a portal to imagine, invent, and heal. Thinking about the healing power of sleep, I remembered a story by James Herriot, who wrote a series of delightful, often humorous memoirs chronicling his life as a country vet in rural Yorkshire in the north of England in the 1940s and 50s. Harriet shared the experience of being called to euthanize a little dachshund who was wasting away from a terrible intestinal disorder that had resisted aggressive medical treatment. As he injected a syringe full of barbiturate into the little animal to end her suffering, something made him pause, and he stopped short of giving her the full dose. Heavily sedated, the little creature proceeded to sleep for an entire week. When she finally awoke, the relentless diarrhea and vomiting that had threatened her life had stopped, and she went on to make a full recovery from her illness. The prolonged rest the little dog received healed her sick and weakened body. Hersey's proclamation that rest saved her life is not an overstatement. You are worthy of rest, she affirms. We don't have to earn rest. Rest is not a luxury, a privilege, or a bonus we must wait for once we are burned out. Hersey invites us to imagine and dream our way to a world that centers community liberation and care. Rest is not a place to waste time, but instead a generative place of freedom and resistance. The final tenet of the NAP ministry is our dream space has been stolen and we want it back. We will reclaim it via rest. Invoking the spirits of her ancestors who endured chattel slavery, plantation labor, and racial segregation during Jim Crow, Hersey exposes the dark roots of capitalism and the violence of these systems and affirms her refusal to submit her own body and life in their service. Reclaiming her right to rest is a powerful act of resistance and resilience. Hersey asks us to consider what it feels like to understand that we are consciously and unconsciously participating in a system that has its foundation in viewing human bodies as non-human machines. What is grind culture doing to our spiritual, mental, and physical health? How does it feel to know our human bodies are viewed by capitalist and ableist culture as existing only to make profit? For us not to view our own bodies or the bodies of others as a divine dwelling, the site of liberation and a miracle, she explains, is to bow down to the dominant, oppressive culture. Hersey encourages us to honor the divine through caring for and revering our bodies, through understanding that existing in a permanent state of exhaustion and depletion is not normal or sustainable, and that claiming our right to rest is a necessary and revolutionary act. We are so programmed to resist rest that many of us may find it challenging to even know where to begin to cultivate an intentional rest practice. Hersey offers some suggestions for preparing both body and spirit for effective napping. Number 1, rest now. Stop suppressing your need for rest and take it when you need it. I keep a yoga mat and a little memory foam pillow in my office, and when I have half an hour between meetings and other work-related obligations, I close my door, turn off the lights, kick off my shoes, roll out my mat, and I take a nap right there on my office floor. I also took a little snoozer while I was writing this yesterday afternoon. Believe. Number 2, believe you are worthy of rest. Squash the feeling that you have to get a certain number of things done before you can rest. Rest is a physical need, not a reward. Number 3, repeat to yourself over and over again and often, our bodies are a site of liberation. When we embody rest, we are breaking free from the confines of grind culture. Number 4, find other, gentler ways of measuring productivity. Rejecting a philosophy of progress is bigger and more will release us from exhaustion and create far greater meaning and value in our work. Number 5, know that your value is not connected to how much you can labor and produce. You have inherent worth and dignity. You don't need to prove it to anyone. Number 6, give yourself grace if developing a rest practice takes time. Sometimes we do have to push ourselves to get things done. Visiting that space temporarily is fine. Just try to make a conscious effort to return to rest when you're done. So what are some ways that you might start to cultivate an intentional rest practice? Maybe you might want to start napping on your office floor like I do. Maybe you take your work email off your phone or impose boundaries around doing work-related tasks at home. Maybe you just let yourself be okay with the soap scum building up in the bathtub for one more day. Or you eat Kraft mac and cheese for dinner once in a while. Maybe you take a long, unhurried walk in the Arboretum during your lunch break. Or immediately change into soft, comfy PJs as soon as you get home. Maybe you detox from phone and social media, or play some soothing music and journal, or read poetry. Hersey urges us to experiment widely with nap rituals and rest habits to craft a rest practice that is restorative, that brings wholeness and peace to our bodies and minds. Your body is a divine temple, she writes, a place of generative imagination, healing, and freedom. We can dream ourselves into a place of peace and loving, restorative care. We just need to give ourselves permission to try. So it is, and so may it be. So let's rise again in body or spirit to join in singing our closing hymn, number 1002 in the Teal hymnal, Comfort Me. Please be seated. Our closing reading is by writer Louise Erdrich from her collection of poems entitled Original Fire. It's called Advice to Myself. Leave the dishes. Let the celery rot in the bottom drawer of the refrigerator, and an earthen scum harden on the kitchen floor. Leave the black crumbs in the bottom of the toaster. Throw the cracked bowl out and don't patch the cup. Don't patch anything. Don't mend. Buy safety pins. Don't even sew on a button. Let the wind have its way, then the earth that invades as dust, and then the dead foaming up in gray rolls underneath the couch. Talk to them. Tell them they are welcome. Don't keep all the pieces of the puzzle or the doll's tiny shoes in pairs. Don't worry who uses whose toothbrush or if anything matches at all, except one word to another or a thought. Pursue the authentic. Decide first what is authentic and then go after it with all your heart. Your heart, that place you don't ever think of cleaning out. That closet stuffed with savage mementos. Don't sort the paper clips from screws, from saved baby teeth, or worry if we're all eating cereal for dinner again. Don't answer the telephone, ever. Or weep over anything at all that breaks. Pink molds will grow within those sealed cartons in the refrigerator. Accept new forms of life. And talk to the dead who drift in through the screened windows, who collect patiently on the tops of food jars and books. Recycle the mail. Don't read it. Don't read anything except what destroys the insulation between yourself and your experience, or what pulls down, or what strikes at, or what shatters this ruse you call necessity. Let us rise and sing together our sung benediction, There is a Love.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice that it may light brightly in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again.
Go to your beds. Go to your couches. Find a hammock. Go into the portal of naps. Go there often. You don't need to wait for permission from the dominant culture. Your body is divine and sovereign. Go to your spaces of rest, joy, and freedom. And please join us downstairs for coffee and fellowship, and come back next week. And birthday cake. Awesome. Even better. Thank you.